All right, welcome everyone to the executive session of our, what month is it, July, Board of Zoning Appeals. At this point, I want to turn it over to staff to make a report on our items we have on the agenda tonight.
Okay. All right, thank you, Ms. Sisson. We have one case before us this evening. It is a request for a variance. It is a parking reduction variance. The property is located in the C2 General Commercial Zoning District. There are a variety of uses allowed in this zoning district, ranging from medical offices to shopping centers to wireless facilities and to retail. And currently, this site is occupied by an Office Depot. The site was developed in 2000. The site plan was approved in 1999. On the lot 2 is the Office Depot, which is the subject property, and the site plan also included the lot next to it, lot 4, which is currently the home of Memphis Pediatrics. Between the two properties, there were 170 parking spaces approved. There are 125 parking spaces specifically for lot 2. As mentioned, the nature of the variance is to request a parking reduction of 7 spaces specifically on lot 2. That would then give it 118 parking spaces. For a retail establishment such as this, the code requires 1 parking space for 200 square feet. This parking reduction would reduce that ratio to 1 parking space for 212 feet. The reason for the parking variance is the applicant would like to put a new wireless transmission facility, a cell tower, in the place of the 7 parking spaces. In order to grant a variance, there is criteria outlined in our zoning ordinance. It's specifically to exceptional narrowness, shallowness, and shape, as well as extraordinary and exceptional situation or condition of the property. And then this results in an undue hardship on the owner. The applicant has said that the amount of parking spaces on the site is very underutilized. About 50% of the parking is utilized on the site. And also the actual building on the site, the Office Depot, there is usable, the amount of usable area in the building is a little over 20,000 square feet. He submitted a parking analysis that you received in your packet and is also posted online that shows how he broke that out. Also, the parking reduction would not adversely affect neighboring properties. I do have slides via PowerPoint that I'm going to show during our hearing. If you have questions, I can bring up any graphics that you need. That is the synopsis of the report. If the parking reduction is approved, then the applicant says he intends to submit to Planning Commission for a site plan for a new cell tower, and then that would advance to the Design Review Commission and the Board of Mayor and Aldermen for final approval.
Sarah?
Yes.
Couple of questions. One, who owns lot 2?
That is a different property owner. The exact name I would have to look up, but it's Memphis Pediatrics is the tenant.
No, I'm sorry, lot 2. Who owns lot 2?
Lot 2. That is Wolf, I believe they're called Wolf River LLC. It's a partnership. The owners are listed on the application.
Okay, how long is the length of the lease that Office Depot has currently?
You would have to ask the applicant that. I'm not sure.
Okay. So, next question is on lot 1, where Memphis Pediatrics is. What is the required parking? What is the minimum parking for that?
So that is lot 4, and they have 45 parking spaces available, and that is the amount that would be required for a 9,000 square foot building that is either an office or retail, which that is. So they are sufficiently parked.
Okay, so they're at the minimum along with lot 2, which is at the minimum right now.
Per the code, yes.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Sarah, not to borrow more work for us, but I'm just curious, why is this not a use on appeal in addition to a variance request.
Mm-hmm. So the zoning district for this is C2, general commercial, and one of allowable uses listed under C2 is a wireless transmission facility. So long as it complies with everything in the code, then it would just go directly to Planning Commission. It does not require use on appeal. Like the other cell towers we're used to seeing, those were located in residential districts, which require.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Madam Chairman, just a question. I know, Mr. Ross, several years ago, we had talked about doing a text amendment to the code that would, if there were any parking reductions, rather than coming to the Board of Zoning Appeals, those would go directly to Planning Commission. And I know that those efforts were thwarted again years ago. I almost hate to see this come to us first, but I know that's kind of where we are now. And so I'd like for you to, if you can expound on future use, or so as not to take time away from this. We're stuck with what we have right now.
Sure. Right now, the shopping center district is the only district that allows for an exception in the number of parking spaces to be considered by the Planning Commission, and that relates on the mix of uses that are within that planned shopping center. We had proposed similar language that would be able to be applied across all of our commercial districts, since parking was in large part a concern of Planning Commission, and that the work of the Board of Zoning Appeals generally focuses on residential concerns and subdivision concerns, and then use on appeals versus reduction in parking for business interest. So we were trying to separate it and let Planning Commission focus on those types of considerations in the same way that the Design Review Commission focuses more on the aesthetics of commercial spaces and less on the aesthetics of individual residential.
Okay, that's helpful. And Mr. Harless, I would love you and our ECD director to have some conversation about. I'd love to see that text amendment come back before the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. I think that if BZA can focus on residential and let Planning Commission take care of that commercial, I think that's a better way to do business, frankly.
I think that's a good comment, Mary Ann. I would just make a comment that Cameron and his staff are cleaning up a lot of loose ends during this pandemic period that we have right now, and I think you're going to see a lot more items cleaned up as we go along, and this could obviously be one of them.
I thought you were going to say while they had all this free time on their hands.
Oh, no.
Which I know not to be true. Madam Chairman, just a couple of other questions. I believe in conversations with Mr. Ross earlier that Office Depot has signed a 14-year lease, possibly last year. Cameron, are we sure on that?
I know that they signed a new lease last year, and the timing of it in approximate terms, but
Sure.
it's more than 10 years.
I think that's very encouraging for this application, by the way.
I've got a question. And
Yeah.
when you look at the vicinity map and you see that it's a big piece of property, but in the northwest corner, is there a reason why the tower couldn't be put there? Unless it's ditch bank or something. I mean, you can't tell.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, we did, when this came in as a preliminary request, we did have those conversations with the applicant, and you're welcome to ask him that during the meeting. According to him, the soils back there would not support it. That area used to be a landfill, and so that soil would not support that type of structure back there. So That was our question, because that would be farther back from the street and more less visible, and it wouldn't require a variance. But one thing I do want to remind the board of is variance has a very strict criteria per our code and by Tennessee state law. And so the applicant needs to demonstrate, again, exceptional narrowness, shallowness, and shape, as well as extraordinary and exceptional situations on the property that result in undue hardship. So just in your answer, yes or no, just make sure you're relating back to those criteria and how this specific site demonstrates that.
Sarah, does the Office Depot parking lot abut adjoining commercial parking lots?
It does abut adjoining commercial, yes. And there is a site plan that's included in there. So to the south, it is it's the Walgreens to the south, and it looks like that's their drive aisle, if I'm looking at it correctly.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, a drive aisle for a drive-through. So
Okay.
yes.
You know, I remember when the landfill was there, I was thinking the boundaries were kind of where the Waffle House is, because there's a creek running through there. There was, and there's still a big ditch, but I didn't realize that due west of here was a landfill. So, and even so, you know, we built buildings. I think Germantown Athletic Club had a lot of bad dirt, as we used to say. So that's, you know, you can put pilings under anything and make it stable.
Yeah. The applicant might have more insight into that knowledge that I'm not aware of at this time. So it may be helpful to ask him as well.
Okay.
Sarah, I have a question. One, I just wanted to confirm, did we receive any comments from the public?
We did not, and public hearing is the same format as we had last time. So, you know, you'll acknowledge that public hearing is done via email. We did not receive any email, so
Okay.
there's not any comment for public hearing.
Okay, great. I just wanted to make sure, not great that we didn't get any comments, but great that I'm just confirming that. And then also the Walgreens that's to the south, do you know the parking requirements for that, as far as if they have extra parking, or are they right at their required amount?
I do not know that. That's another owner. Cameron, do you have any knowledge on Walgreens parking situation?
I don't. I could try and pull it up while we're talking.
You know, what's interesting is the Walgreens parking lot, just a matter of a couple of years ago, put a out parcel building on their parking lot. No, that's not the right corner. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no,
Never mind.
It does look that Walgreens is, that lot does split, but I'm just, maybe I missed something, because you've given information about the lot that's to the north, but not the information about the lot to the south. So was the lot to the south developed at a previous time to this lot? Is that the difference?
Yeah, this lot was developed separately. The lot to the north and Office Depot were developed as one. They're included in one site plan together, and their parking was determined in tandem. So that was the reason why I looked at that.
Okay, just.
It's been my experience, though, from using Office Depot and at various times of year, you know, at Christmas time and other times that you would think were real busy. I've never seen anything close to being full in this parking lot. Has anybody else seen anything different than that?
No.
It's a lot of asphalt out there, so I don't think, to me, the 7 parking spaces, you know, is not a big deal.
Sarah, is trying to look at lot 2, the Office Depot lot. Is this the one that looks like an hourglass, kind of odd shape?
I don't know, an hourglass. It looks like it has a hook because there is a part of this lot that extends north of the Memphis Pediatrics site. Here, let me bring up a.
Where in that hook? Where in that hook would the tower go?
It wouldn't. Let me show you. Let me bring up a slide. Actually, just a second.
Hey, Sarah, while you're looking that up, let me ask something else. Could we
Yes.
also, how the Dogwood School transmission tower was a public safety issue? Is that another reason that we could consider this?
So this is not a use on appeal or a consideration of the cell tower. This is just a consideration of parking reduction. So that information would be at the next stage at the Planning Commission, whether to determine to allow the cell tower there. So I brought up an aerial. It shows where these 7 parking spaces are and their distance from Germantown Road. And Mr. Strain, if you can see how the property is outlined in blue, how it makes a hook up to the north. So the tower would be located in between Office Depot and Walgreens.
Office Depot and Walgreens.
Right, it's that light turquoise outline box.
By the way, with regard to Frank's last question, the board may always consider health, safety, welfare with regard to all of their decisions.
Yeah, because when we voted on the school expansion, Germantown Elementary, that was a consideration, was the traffic and safety.
But Mr. Strain, wouldn't the health and safety considerations have to relate back to the parking? For instance, a parking reduction would not cause further congestion on this site that would relate to an accident or something like that. That's not related to the proposed use.
And also, can I jump in right quick? The Dogwood cell tower, that was actually a use that you had, that was kind of a use on appeal that you had to approve. It had to specifically do with the cell tower use. This application specifically deals with a parking reduction. And that parking reduction is not just related to the cell tower, it's related to any use that's permitted in that C2 district. Whether it's the Office Depot or whether it's another Fresh Market or Kroger or whatever could go into that building. You look at the parking relationship to the size of the building, the square footage of the building, and what's required for that site.
All right. So with the use on appeal, as Sheila said, you do specifically need to look at the health and safety as it's outlined in the ordinance. But this is not a use on appeal. This is a parking reduction variance. So,
Sarah, I have a question.
Yes.
So they cannot build the tower on that hook area of property. They would have to put it somewhere closer to the building where it's more stable because the land is not.
That is what I was told. Yes.
Okay. So that pre-existing condition of the quality of the land to the rear of their property line is a problem. We can ask the applicant that, or you may ask the applicant that during the hearing. But yes, because we had talked about, if you see my cursor, I had asked about up in this area, if it could be located back in here somehow. Right.
And I was told that that wasn't a viable option due to the grade and the soil condition.
So the variance is being given for parking. We're not really considering an approval at all of a cell tower. It's just the reduction in parking.
Yes.
And variances go with the land. They don't go with the use.
That's correct.
So it doesn't matter what's going to be there next year or 20 years from now or 100 years from now. There is a variance on parking for that parcel of land. Office Depot is probably not going to be around in 10 years. Office supply sales are going online. That's why you don't have a lot of parking in their parking lot. So they may have a lease for 10 years, but they're probably not going to be around to see that lease completed. And when you're talking about a unique aspect of the property, that unique aspect has to be something that creates a hardship. It can't just be that the land has a unique quality to it or a unique condition to it. That unique condition has to be creating a hardship, which it's not.
Madam Chairman, I did have a question of staff. Sarah, was there any discussion with Public Works about the utility easements that are close to there?
Yes, although this was a variance application, we did forward it on to different departments to look at it since they will be looking at it in the planning commission phase. And Public Works and Engineering were concerned about the proximity of the enclosure to the easements. They are not, the enclosure is not located on any easements, but it's right up to it. So they were concerned about access to the easements.
So you said they were concerned about access.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
For instance, if the one of them is a sewer easement, if they have to access that there's also a water easement there. If they have to access that water line, they need to tear up, and they have no room on that one side to.
No. I absolutely understood what access. I knew what that meant. I was trying to think how we could creatively have that conversation with the applicant to ensure that there were no access issues. And, and I would imagine that language could be part of certainly whether if it were to move on to planning could happen later. Mm-hmm. Just something to consider.
I think the easement is created so that it gives you enough room.
Frank, I'm not sure that I could hear you.
No, I'm sorry. I was just saying that I think an easement is designed so that there's adequate space to work. How wide is it? I couldn't tell.
I think it's 5 feet.
That's all? 5 feet?
For the water, let me take a look.
And generally, one is outside the other. Like if you have a water and sewer, it's 10 plus 5, isn't it?
And keep in mind, Mr. Uhorn, that even though it may be 5 feet, it's in a parking lot where there's open space. So if they have to get in and they're outside of that 5 feet, they're not damaging or having any issue with the structures because there's no buildings or anything near it.
Right. I mean, like when Miller Farms Road, the ditch there, we had to get construction easements and so forth that were beyond the boundaries. So yeah, that happens from time to time. Have to get a construction easement or something like that.
Frank, Sarah, Section B on the powers of the Board of Zoning Appeals suggests that the board, in approving or denying a use or variance, consider various things, including public health, safety, comfort, or welfare.
Right. But related to the request at hand, correct?
Sure.
The parking reduction.
Always, but it's for variance and use.
Okay.
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct, but as Sarah said, it's related to the variance that's requested, not necessarily the future use.
Where is it that the cell service is lacking? Obviously they're not putting there because they don't need one. How much of an area will it serve? I I didn't, they referenced the area, but I never did see it in the.
The tough part about all of this, Frank, is that that's not part of what we're here to talk about. I mean, we can talk about it, but it is simply a parking reduction. It's those spaces, and I think that I see my friend Mr. Harless nodding his head. Well, we could talk cell service all day long.
Oh yeah, I know.
And we should honestly.
I don't know how you can really separate the two, because yes, it's parking variance that they're asking for, but is that to, as one of the byproducts, increase public safety?
Right. Like, can it be placed somewhere else on the site, maybe?
But that's not even allowed to be considered when you're considering a variance. It's not one of the criteria for a variance.
You can consider it as part of the public safety.
It's in section B.
Right, but public safety, Frank, is related to the parking reduction. So does the parking reduction inhibit public safety? That's the way it needs to be looked at for this particular request.
Well, yeah, I understand that. I think that to me, it's a bigger view in that, in order to put it there on this site someplace, whether it's this place or not, the cell service inevitably is a public safety commission consideration, because its implementation will benefit the entire city.
Gotcha. I understand what you're talking about now. I apologize. I misunderstood.
Yeah.
So what if the guy gets his variance and he now has a variance for this lot, which is in perpetuity and goes with the property, and then he decides not to put up a cell tower?
I'm sorry, Greg, I didn't hear you. I had my throat stretched.
So if part of your rationale for granting a variance is that a cell tower would be a good thing for the community and would be in the public's best interest from a public safety perspective, what's preventing the applicant from getting the variance and then not building a cell tower?
Well, the 7 parking spaces would still be there. There'd be no tower.
The variance would go with the land that he doesn't need them. He has a reduction in parking.
They don't disappear.
Need those spaces.
They don't disappear.
Put whatever he wants there.
Yeah, but to Greg's point, if you read the motion is simply to approve a variance for a parking reduction. It doesn't discuss the use beyond what happens when the parking is reduced. It's simply a motion to either grant, well, because we make our motions in the affirmative, it is a motion to grant the reduction of parking 7 spaces.
Well, even if he doesn't put a cell tower on it, I don't think it's a big deal to reduce the parking field by 7 spaces. So if he wants a variance and then doesn't build a cell tower,
it's not a big deal until the next applicant comes and you deny them the variance to reduce their parking because you don't think that their application meets the same standard that this one does. You're getting into a slippery slope.
Of asphalt here, and that's why you consider each case by case. I think this one, clearly they don't need all that parking, unfortunately.
It's about 6 o'clock.
I have 1 minute till I know I've learned that I'm supposed to be very precise about this. So, which with our 1 minute, did the governor's order extend to, would it be through next month? If we meet again, we will be electronic next month as well?
I thought it was August 31st. Is that wrong?
That's correct. August 29th.
Okay. So just heads up in case we are meeting next month, it will be electronic.
And just as a quick reminder, please do not forget to send me your continuing education credit hours. So Sheila sent out some webinars that can be viewed. So please continue to get those credits and send me the form. Thank you.
Also, as a quick reminder, don't forget to mute yourself if you're not talking, especially during staff presentation, and also sit forward and face your device so that the microphone can pick everything up.
It's time to go.
I have that it is 6 o'clock now.
Yeah.
So let me call to order the July 14th, 2020 Board of Zoning Appeals. First, would the secretary please call the roll to establish a quorum?
Mr. Yulhorn,
Here.
Mr. Harless,
Here.
Mr. Hurley,
Here.
Ms. Bowden,
Here.
Ms. Cliff,
Here.
Alderman Gibson,
Here.
Chairman Sisson.
Here. This time I would like to make a few announcements regarding our meetings. I want to remind those in attendance that the Board of Zoning Appeals is a quasi-judicial body, and as such, the latitude for acting on applications is somewhat limited by state statute and city ordinance. This meeting is being recorded. Therefore, as Cameron mentioned, if you will be sure to speak clearly into the microphone so that we can hear you. Also, when you, if you're not on the commission itself, when you speak, will you please clearly identify yourself by your name and address, and then I will at that point swear you in for the record. At this time, I'd like to swear in the staff. So staff, if you'll please raise your right hand. So I can see everyone. All right. You swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
I do.
At this time, there is a special statement regarding virtual meetings. So I'm going to turn it over to, I believe, Cameron to make that statement.
Thank you, Chairman Sisson. As it regards electronic meetings, all local governing bodies in the state of Tennessee have been impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic, and Germantown is no exception. In an effort to carry out the governance and operational responsibilities lawfully and effectively, while also considering the protection of public health, safety, and welfare, the Germantown City Administration has taken steps to conduct Board of Mayor and Alderman meetings, as well as other public meetings like the Board of Zoning Appeals, electronically. These actions have been taken in response to Governor Bill Lee's Executive Order number 51, which was an order extending Executive Order number 16 that was previously extended by Order number 34. Those orders suspended the requirements of the Tennessee Open Meetings Act to the extent necessary to allow governing bodies subject to the act to meet and conduct essential business by electronic means. The Germantown Board of Mayor and Aldermen has determined that meeting electronically is necessary to protect the health, safety, and welfare of citizens in light of the COVID-19 pandemic. The BZA concurs in this action, as well as the administration of Germantown. Further notice of such electronic meetings has been and will continue to be published in the same manner as is currently used for regular meetings. The public is also and will continue to be able to view the agenda, have live access to the actual meetings by electronic means by logging into Germantown's webpage and clicking on the appropriate link. Video recordings of the meetings will be made available as soon as it is practical after each meeting on the city's website at www.germantown-tn.gov. These measures are temporary and are due to expire on August 29th, 2020, unless further action is taken by Governor Lee. Thank you, Chairman Sisson.
Thank you very much, Cameron. At this time, I'd like to bring our first item of business, which is to review and approve the minutes of our May 12th, 2020 meeting. Those minutes have been circulated to the commission. Do I have a motion regarding those minutes?
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Secretary, when you have an opportunity, will you call the roll?
Alderman Gibson,
Yes.
Ms. Cliff,
Yes.
Ms. Bowden,
Yes.
Mr. Hurley,
Yes.
Mr. Harless,
Yes.
Mr. Uehorn,
Yes.
Chairman Sisson.
Yes. And with that, those minutes are approved. Moving on to the next item on our agenda, which is regarding a parking variance for 1275 South Germantown Road. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to staff to make that presentation.
Okay. Thank you, Chairman Sisson. Give me one moment. I'm going to share a PowerPoint presentation and get that ready for our item. Okay, so as you mentioned, the item before us this evening is a request for a variance for a parking reduction at 1275 South Germantown Road. That is the Office Depot. It is Lot 2 of the River Village Commercial Subdivision, Section C. As you can see here, the hatched shape is the parcel. It is in the C2 General Commercial Zoning District. C2 General Commercial has a variety of uses in the zoning designation. Retail, as is the Office Depot. To the north, there is a medical office and other uses such as wireless transmission facilities, supermarkets, and personal services are also allowed in the C2 General Commercial Zoning District. Here's an aerial view of the site, the Office Depot. The light blue turquoise oblong area shows, which has tower above it, shows where the parking reduction of 7 spaces would be. This parcel was approved as part of a site plan with the parcel to the north, where you see office, lots 2 and 4 of the River Village subdivision. Office Depot on the subject property is approximately 25,000 square foot building. It was built in 2000. And the parking for this property was developed as a site plan for this lot and lot 4 to the north. There was a total of 170 parking spaces approved, which was the amount for the zoning regulations. For the Office Depot lot specifically, there are 120 parking spaces, or 125 parking spaces that were approved. If you look on this site plan of the originally approved project, you can see the area in yellow highlighted. Those are where the 7 parking spaces would be reduced. The reason for this variance is a reduction in parking of 7 spaces. That would then reduce the amount of parking on this site from 125 to 118 parking spaces. The ratio of parking in C2 for this zoning, for this particular use is 1 parking space for every 200 gross floor area, square feet of gross floor area. This parking reduction would then be 1 parking space for every 212 square feet of gross floor area. The reason for the parking reduction is that the applicant wishes to further develop the site and would like to put a cell tower on this property. The request before us tonight is simply for the parking reduction, not for the use. The use is a by right use if approved by the Planning Commission on this site. So the justification, here's the proposed site plan specifically showing the 7 parking spaces that are being removed. The justification per the applicant is being requested due to both the exceptional narrowness, shallowness, or shape of the property, as well as other extraordinary and exceptional situation or condition of a piece of property. A parking analysis and observation as a customer for many years, 50% of the existing parking lot has not been used throughout the years, states the applicant. And then this also has resulted in a peculiar and exceptional practical difficulties per the applicant based on the parking analysis that was submitted and as part of your packet, and that's available online. And discussion with the Office Depot manager, the current parking demand has not exceeded 40% during peak periods. The reduction in the required parking spaces would not adversely impact Office Depot customers or the adjoining property. And as mentioned, the applicant submitted a parking study that showed the parking reduction and the utilization, and also showed that the usable area of the building was about 20,000 square feet, and calculated the parking based on that. Just as a reminder, in granting a variance, here are the criteria that we just discussed. These are the criteria in section 23-49A4 of the zoning ordinance, where by reason of exceptional narrowness, shallowness, or shape of a specific piece of property, by reason of exceptional topographic conditions, or other extraordinary exceptional situation or condition of such piece of property. And then this results in peculiar or exceptional practical difficulties and undue hardship upon the owner of such property. And hardship is specific to the land. Financial hardship is not a reason to grant a variance. So that concludes staff's presentation. The applicant is here to also present and have any questions. At this time, I will take any questions specifically from staff. The discussion of the item will happen, though, once the motion is on the floor.
Thank you very much. At this time, commission members, is there any questions of staff? Okay, hearing none, then at this time I'm seeing someone on the screen that I think would probably be wanting to speak on behalf of the applicant. It's kind of odd since we're not in a in-person setting, but at this time, if you would like to speak, would you come on and state your name and address, please?
Michael Fay of the Prime Development Group, 7520 Capitol Drive, Germantown, Tennessee.
Thank you very much. And if you'll raise your right hand, I can swear you in. Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth to help you God?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Thank you very much. Go ahead with your presentation.
Sarah, can we go back to the site plan that shows the overall site with the driveways and the site shown in yellow?
Yes, I can go back to that. Just give me a moment. This one here?
Yes. Can you zoom that in just a little, or is that?
No, because it's a PowerPoint.
Okay. Well, we can take it from there. So, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, thank you for allowing us to present this case. This particular site is a very unusual site that we're all very familiar with. It's at one of our most predominant corners in Germantown. There are a number of unusual things that run with this site that we believe impact this piece of property now and in the future. First, I called your attention over on Germantown Parkway. You will notice there are two right in, right out curb cuts on the Germantown Parkway. So the only way to access this site from Germantown Parkway is southbound on Germantown Parkway. You've got to go over the bridge, come into Germantown, and you can make a right turn into the site. You cannot make a left turn into the site with this particular design. So when we look at particular sites, we look at the developments across the street, they would have what we would call a full movement curb cut. That full movement curb cut allows a right in, a right out, a left in, a left out. With this design, ladies and gentlemen, 50% of our access has been reduced. That stays with the property. I doubt the city engineer is ever going to change that. That is the huge impacting factor so far as the viability of the site. Now, if you're in Germantown City Hall and you want to go into the site, your only way to get into the site if you're going northbound would be to drive up to the intersection of Wolf River and Germantown, turn left. You might be lucky enough that there isn't any oncoming traffic from the north and try to turn into the Walgreens site. But in reality, what would happen is you would turn into the next full movement curb cut, which is the hotel, which is the area that is over to the left of this particular site. Now, the other thing I want to call into your attention is, and this came up with our discussions with staff, on this particular site plan, if you will look at the top of the plan, you will see a series of dots. I don't know if you can read those, but there are lines that are a series of dots. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the floodway, not the floodplain, the floodway. We called this out on the map, and that is one of the issues in this particular site. Staff had asked us, hey, can you look at any other sites? Is there anything that we could look at on this site? We've been looking at this particular area for over 2 years. The area that is just to the left that you see of the proposed retail, where there's some parking spaces, there are retaining walls back there. And this particular area is encumbered with an enormous amount of easements. There are just as many easements here as there are anywhere else in this property. We also went next door and tried to work with the property that is the hotel site, because it looked as though that would work. But ladies and gentlemen, in order to put in a compound and any kind of tower back in that area, we would have to encumber into the floodway. And as this board and these members are aware of, that is a very difficult site, especially since there are downstream impacts. Now, why not go across on the other side of the ditch? Well, to the members of the community who are a little bit older like myself, you may recall that that particular location was a dump. It's a landfill. The Pancake House across the street, or just north of the site, actually has a methane reduction system in the slab. So when you look north of it and go, hey, why not go up there? Ladies and gentlemen, there is no telling what's in those soils. So, but I can tell you in this particular site, we have done our investigations and these soils appear to be in good shape. So aside from the fact that we've got a site that was built in 2000 or 20 years ago, we have limited access to be able to go in and out of the property. We also have another situation that I think that came up with our discussions with staff, and that was, what about all these easements? And Sarah, can we go back to the site plan that was the blow up? There we go. Ladies and gentlemen, this particular site is like many sites that we see in Germantown that are commercial sites. The sewer, the drainage, the water easements that bisect this property are all private. City of Germantown does not maintain those, just like City of Germantown would maintain, through any other commercial development. City maintains it to your property line, you maintain it from there. So before we started this plan, we went and had all of these lines located, including the water line. We know where the water line is. We know that it would fit in this particular location. So to answer any of your questions, and staff brought this up, but hey, what about all these easements? If we put the tower in this particular location, and I know that's not part of the request, but it actually is, that this particular location would allow us to carve out and remove 7 parking spaces, and it would fit and not encumber any of the existing utilities in the property. Now, with all these cases that we deal with in the future and in the past, your job is obviously what is the hardship. Our belief that the hardship on this particular site is encumbered first by the access, which is not going to change. 50% of the access from Germantown Parkway, the primary road, can't get into the site, and that was by design. But what also has happened is when we did our traffic study, and ladies and gentlemen, we did not go out and do a traffic study on this particular property and count cars. We felt that would be very self-serving. Here we are in a pandemic. I think we all already know what the impact of that study would be. No one was out. But what we did do is we took a look at it the way that we used to look at commercial buildings. We broke down the building into the lease space, the rental space. So ladies and gentlemen, if we just took out the 460 square feet for the restrooms, the 266 feet for the vestibule, which is really just an airlock, and we take out 900 feet, which you see up on the top left, that's a loading dock. So in the map that is before you right now, the 2 areas that you see in yellow are primarily common areas. Those areas we have to have parking spaces for. But if we take out the 2 yellow areas and the very top left corner, that's 1,600 square feet. That's 8 spaces. Now, obviously, we all know that the loading dock doesn't need a parking space. But when we go one step further in the analysis, we also broke out the additional other areas that you see in red. Those additional areas in red are the storage areas, the employee spaces, the office, and that's pretty well it. So when you take a look at this building, it showed that we could actually reduce that and still the building footprint as it is would not be impacted. So our belief was that because the traffic study could show that there really was no need, and the future impact of this is that it's doubtful that the building would stay in place. But if the building did stay in place, that we had parking spaces for our vestibule and our restrooms and a loading dock. And I think we would all agree that common sense says probably that's not going to happen. But ladies and gentlemen, the areas that you see in red can only be accessed by our 7 employees, and 7 is the max that they normally have on this particular site. So when we look at this particular site and ask you to your consideration on the variance, if we could go back to the site plan, Sarah. There we go. We ask you to consider this, that when you're looking at this particular site, first of all, these 7 spaces in the back will not impact any viability of any customers, whether it's Office Depot now or Office Depot in the future, or any other tenant. I can tell you that Office Depot signed an 8-year lease this year with the property owner, so they plan on being on the property for some time. The Le Bonheur has a facility where it's called the proposed retail, so they are an 8 to 5 type operation. So it's our belief that the hardship in this particular case, as I said earlier, is impacted by the limited access to the property, also based on the need, the unnecessary need for parking spaces for the vestibule and the restrooms and the loading dock. When you remove those areas out of there, we would have more than enough parking space. And ladies and gentlemen, as we've all found out in this past few months, and it's not a part of this particular board's purview, but having cell service has changed our views on everything. The only reason we're asking for the request is that Verizon can install a cell or have put antennas on this tower. They want to be in this site immediately. And then wasn't included in the staff report, but it is included in the package. We did provide maps that show how much the service area would improve. And one of the things that we all know when we go down Wolf River Boulevard, that is our medical corridor. And having that services there is the reason why this particular site was considered to be viable. So in summation, ladies and gentlemen, this area needs service, but when we try to go to the north, we're in a dump. If we try to go too far to the west, we're under TVA towers. And this particular spot, based on the, as I said, the access and the, excessive parking that's required for this particular use, and we believe in the future, is our justification for this request. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much. At this time, is there questions of the applicant representative? Okay.
Hey, I have a question.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Have you considered putting the seven parking places that you're wanting to remove back in the northwest corner, where the soil is not particularly good for the tower, but for 7 additional parking places? That seems like a no-brainer.
To answer your question, hold on, let me pull that up. In that particular location, Mr. Harless, the parking spaces, adding 7 spaces in that northwest corner is complicated by the fact that the Le Bonheur has a dumpster enclosure back there, and there are the existing utilities. Plus, there are transformers and fire hydrants down in that area. I assure you that we've studied everything that we could. The only way to add spaces would be to build about a 15 to 20 foot retaining wall up against the floodway, and then possibly deal with the ARAP. It was just our belief that impact over in that area, because it also is a circulation issue with this particular site. There are easements that allow all of these users to go around, that we couldn't successfully do that.
Thank you.
Mike Fay, I really appreciate your presentation. It answered all my questions. And I understand now because, you know, with the northwest corner being out based on the dotted lines of floodplain as well as floodway, I don't see any other alternative.
All right. Thank you very much. At this time, is there any other questions? And I would just note to the commission that we will be having an opportunity to discuss. This is, do we have any questions of the applicant? As Commissioner Yulhorn noted, Mr. Fay, I had all my questions and you answered them in the presentation. So I'm a bit quiet at this moment. So it seems that there's no questions from the applicant or for the applicant. So at this time, I want to ask the staff if they have received any public comments via email in favor or against the variance request, so that we can note those in the record.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Sisson. As you know, due to the virtual format, the public hearing, the way public comment is submitted now is via email as announced on the city's website. We did not receive any comments for or against the application.
Okay, thank you very much. And so at this time, I will close the public hearing portion, and I am ready to entertain a motion at this moment.
Move to approve.
Thank you. And do I have a second?
Second.
Thanks. Okay, and so the motion, I am also getting used to this new format, so I want to make sure that I'm doing this. So I'm going to read the motion at this time. The motion is to approve a variance for a parking reduction, which is 7 spaces, resulting in 118 parking spaces for Lot 2 of the River Village subdivision, Section C, which is 1275 South Germantown Road, in the C2 General Commercial Zoning District, subject to the board's discussions, staff comments, and the site plan submitted with the application. And now at this time, if there's any comments that the commissioners would like to make, we're now open for that.
Madam Chairman, I have a couple of comments.
Go ahead.
I am not sure the variance that the applicant is requesting is justified based on the unusual shape of the lot. I think the lot is satisfactory. It serves its purpose. The fact that we're trying to put more things on this lot is not justifiable for granting a variance that the applicant is requesting. However, I think he makes a good case regarding the square footage of the Office Depot. The amount of parking spaces that are allotted for Office Depot probably are in excess of what they need. And I know we have made a variance in the past when we looked at a building and how it was being used to justify not needing as many parking places. And while I say that, I think the fact that he's wanting to put up a cell tower that is for the public safety and I think is necessary, I am going to vote for this this variance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This time, is there any other commissioners that would like to speak?
Madam Chairman, I just wanted to say again, I appreciate the applicant's presentation, and Mr. Harless addressed many of the things that had been weighing on me. But I know during executive session that we did discuss, and one of our commissioners had brought up the fact that this is when you grant a variance, it is forever amen, and so to that end. Knowing that we do have a tenant there that will be there for 8 years, at least based on what the applicant said as far as the current lease that they signed. So to just think of the hypothetical of a future tenant and what that would look like. And I think Cameron, you or Mr. Harless would be in the best position to answer this. You know, when something were to come to planning that did not meet the same, I guess, criteria that Office Depot did. Those development plans would be approved, denied, based on that case by case scenario. Is that correct?
Cameron, would you like me to take the question, or are you going to pick it up?
Sarah, why don't you go ahead?
And I apologize, Sarah. I should have gone to you first. I lost you on the screen.
No, that's fine. So if, as you were mentioning, if the variance is granted, it runs with the land. And so then it doesn't, any future use that comes in, regardless if it's a cell tower or an office or a medical office, it would then be able to utilize that parking reduction. But you had a more specific point with your case by case. What exactly were you requesting there?
Just looking at if I think the applicant had mentioned something about whether the building would be there or would not be there. If a new building is designed for that particular parcel, then I believe that there would be controls through Planning Commission that would dictate what that would be, what that criteria would be.
Mm-hmm. So as you mentioned, the variance runs with the land. So if this building was torn down and a new building was put on the site, per the current zoning regulations, then the building would have to be smaller than what is the Office Depot presently, because the parking has been reduced.
Okay. Thank you for helping me get to the point. Is that would have to be amended. The size of the building would have to be amended.
Correct. Under the current code. The current code.
Much appreciated. I think that one of the things in looking at those very strict criteria that we have about those words, extraordinary or exceptional, for me, the access with only 50% access into that, and again, that is the way that it is developed now with those curb cuts. I think that is what is pushing me toward approval of this, and I welcome more conversation with my other commissioners.
Thank you very much, and with great respect to Mr. Harless, I take a different perspective as far as the topographical issues related to this property. I do think with the flood zone issue, that does create a unusual, exceptional issue with this particular piece of property. And I also with Mary Ann, along with that, the restriction in the way that traffic can access this property does affect this particular piece of property. So I end in the same place as Commissioner Harless and Commissioner Gibson, although with a slightly different route. But I do think that given that the topography issues with the landfill and the floodway do seem to rise to meet that requirement under the ordinance, in my opinion. And Mr. Fay, I thank you very much for really exhausting all of those questions that we were having about where else this could be and why we need to have it there, why this variance is required. And I appreciate your clients looking into all of that so that we can feel confident that those opportunities had been explored and discarded for a reason. Is there any other commissioners that would like to comment on this matter, on this motion?
I think that it would be beneficial from a public safety standpoint to have this tower be there.
I think my only concern is that what if that property is developed down the road, and what does that look like if we take away those spaces? But it is a concern that there's no place else to put the tower. There's no other place to add additional parking to keep that number. It's a difficult piece of property right there. And as it was mentioned, trying to get into the parking lot, that is very difficult.
You know, as far as future development, whatever the then codes would require, there's no doubt that this tower will always be close to the property line, so it would always be easy to work around, that's for sure.
Okay, one last call. Any other comments?
I do have a question for the applicant. Is the tower that's proposed, and I realize that's not what we're talking about tonight, but is that a self-collapsing tower?
Yes, sir, it is. In fact, we have already submitted to staff a letter with the design as well.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I'm going to close the debate and ask for the secretary to please call the roll for the vote.
Mr. Hurley?
I vote no, because I don't think that it meets the criteria for a variance.
Ms. Bowden?
I vote yes. I think that it does meet the criteria for a variance due to the exceptional piece of property at the rear where the flood zone is present.
Ms. Cliff?
I vote yes, based upon the reasons given by Alderman Gibson, Mr. Harless, and Chairman Sisson. Yeah, I approve.
Mr. Yulhorn?
I vote yes, because I think it has a number of qualifying reasons. Number one, topographical. Number two, it is an irregular shaped lot. If the lot took into account all the unusable space in it, you'd have plenty of room to put it elsewhere, but that's not the case here. And then thirdly, I think that with the medical corridor being right where it is, and we've gone through a lot of expansion there, I think that this is a good spot to make sure that citizens are covered safety-wise.
Mr. Harless?
Just reiterating what I earlier stated, that I don't think the lot is unusually in shape, but I do believe that a variance should be granted due to the required parking spaces that may be in excess. So I vote yes.
Alderman Gibson?
And I vote yes, based on certainly Chairman Harless's comments, but as well as several of the others specific to access to the site being exceptional.
Chairman Sisson? Sorry.
My fault.
Turn on your mic.
Sorry. I vote yes for the reasons I mentioned previously. And with that, the motion passes. At this time, I'm unaware of any old business to discuss or new business to discuss. And therefore, being no further business, I will adjourn this meeting. Thank you very much, everyone.
And the only business is to say, y'all be safe. It is so good to see everybody. No kidding.
Be safe.
Yeah.
One day we'll be in person again.
One day.
Okay.
Amen.
Okay, bye.
Bye, y'all.
How we get out of here?
I just want to stay and wait till Frank gets out of here.
Okay. I think
Okay,
I
y'all.
did I do it? Did that
No.
We don't see you anymore.
Okay. I'll go get
Oh, there he is. He's back.
Well, okay, I'll get Grace. She can do it.